Hi there, and welcome to the Kingdom Sexuality Podcast. We're Paris and Alana, friends who have a heart for intimacy and long to uncover God's truth and design for sexual freedom within marriage. Welcome here. All right, welcome back to part 2 of this kind of episode series I suppose we did. We were going to do both of these episodes into one episode, like what sex is and what sex is not. But as we got going, we're like, okay, this is taking too long. We need to now put this into 2 episodes. There's the basics of it. That's just, we'll get real with you. That's what it ended up being, which is, I think, okay, because we got to actually put more detail and thought into now each chunk. And I think it's better for like you guys listening, because now it's like, I don't know. I think it just pieces better. And if an episode gets too long, I find it's tricky to just keep listening for like hours on end. So anyways, Welcome back to another episode of the Kingdom Sexuality Podcast. I'm here with Rusti, and we're going to chat today on what sex is not. So if you didn't listen to our last episode, we talked about what sex is. And so to do like a brief overview, we just talked about how sex is, like a covenant reflective of Christ and his bride. We talked about how sex can be a meaning like of comfort, healing, connection, pleasure. It's fun, it's a learned skill, and it is a gift.
Amen.
And so today we're going to go through some just overview. I feel like this is stuff like we all kind of know, but just to really break it down and go into more depth, what sex is not. So, Rusti, if someone was like, okay, like Rusti, you told us like some things of what sex is. What's something that sex is not? What would be like the first thing that would come to mind for you?
The first thing that comes to my mind whenever I think of what we want to make sure we steer clear of is that it's not a bargaining tool.
Mm-hmm.
I think oftentimes in media, we see it portrayed as a husband being like, hey, babe, if we can do this and this and this tonight, then, you can go on that shopping spree with your friends later and I'll take the kids. I won't complain at all. It's like
Right.
it's something to be tossed around and like it's a form of payment or something like that. Like, oh my goodness, we need to steer clear of that. Like, you don't use sex as a way to get your way. It's cheapening it down to something that is very much not reflective of what God has created it for. And so I think that is the first thing that comes to my mind, is that it's not a bargaining tool. It's not something you withhold if, your husband, if you're just mad at him and you want to punish him. That's not what it is. It's not a bargaining tool. It's not, I'll give this to you to get my way, or I'll take it away if you're not giving me what I want. Yeah. That is not what we want. We want to steer clear of using it in that way.
Yeah. I like how you use the word cheapen. Like that cheapens it. I think that's a good way to word it. Because I think it's true. And it kind of like brings another thing to my mind, which is like how it would be like a way of like asserting dominance or power, right? Where you're like, I gave you sex, so now you have to do this for me.
Right.
Or if you want any sex, which I mean kind of is what you said.
Yeah.
But
they do it. They can absolutely go hand in hand.
Yeah. Or if you do this, then I'll do this, which is also maybe the same kind of thing, but like I'll clean the house if you give me a blowjob, or I'll, I don't know. But I mean,
it's not, the whole point is like, it's not a form of currency that you can use to trade out what you want, or what to figure out like what else I can get from it. That is not what it is.
No. Another thing that sex is not always easy.
Oh, amen.
Like, I think going into marriage, I just instantly, like, you just naturally, to me, I thought it would just be this simple thing. My body will know what to do. People have been having sex forever. Like, I'll just, I'll do the thing, you do the dance, and then, well, bam, you did it, and you're like hot and sweaty, and you're like, oh, that was fantastic. And you roll over and you have a good sleep.
Right?
But
And
like,
how quickly did you learn that it was not, in fact, easy? Night one?
oh my goodness. Yes. Well, afterwards, when you're like trying to like waddle off to the bathroom, I'm like, how on
Oh,
earth in the
gosh.
movies do like they just good night, like kiss on the cheek and you roll over and spoon? It's like, um,
No!
what? How? Like, what is happening?
That is such an inaccurate portrayal of what it really
Right?
is. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh goodness,
No. No.
which leads to another thing that it is not. And I love our community has been so good about bringing this up lately, and I'm so glad they do, because you guys, sex is not clean. Like, it is
Mm.
a messy thing. Like, you don't see that portrayed in the movies. And so, Alana, whenever you said when you're
No.
like waddling off, it's like, can you beat the drip? So if you're not
Right?
using a condom for protection, and if you are literally like trying to make it to the bathroom before you have stuff fall out of you or get all over the bed, or it's just running down your leg and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
gross. Like, they
Gross.
don't show that. But in reality, I mean, even if you do just roll over, you're gonna be rolling over and you're gonna be creating a wet spot. So
Right?
it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
And even if you do use a condom, then your husband's having to go clean up, get rid of that, make sure that that
Yep.
is taken care of. He has to clean up, rinse off, do whatever.
Yep.
And so that is absolutely something
Yeah.
that needs more light shined on it, and that is that sex is messy. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like the messier the better. You can get hot and sweaty, all that's all wonderful and fine, but still yet, like, you just it's totally fine if you need to hop in the shower afterwards to get cleaned up, guys.
Oh my goodness. Can we also talk about like, I don't know if this is just me, but like the stretch to reach like the box of tissue afterwards to like
Oh
try and like
yeah.
catch. I'm like, you
Before.
just like try and like reach for anything. It's like, oh my goodness, this is just not working out.
Yep. I
Also,
think go ahead.
no, go for it.
I was just saying that's something that we have learned as the years have progressed, is that um as long as it's not like an impromptu, like if you're thinking, okay, we've got time, let's do this, then you bring something with you to catch the mess, because nobody wants to lay in the wet spot. Nobody wants to do that.
No.
So you come prepared or have something within reach.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Another thing sex is not, it is not always comfortable,
Mm.
especially if you're like lacking in the lubricant department.
Oof.
Then this just won't be comfy. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if
Mm-hmm.
if you have to experience that sometimes, because that's not fun and it's not comfy. And I mean, trying new positions, you get like a
Yeah.
butt cramp, like
Mm.
you get like a different kind of cramp. You're like, oh my gosh, my leg. You gotta like try and stretch out, but also like I was in a groove, but like, oh my gosh, my leg is burning.
Right.
It is just not comfortable. I'm sorry. If you're like engaged and listening to this, you're like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? But I promise it is also fun and fantastic. If you listen to our last episode, you'll know that too. But just getting real with you, it's just not always the comfiest, especially if you're
Yeah.
just learning and trying to figure it out. It's just, you'll go through like seasons of being, just learning.
Yeah.
It's just learning.
And it's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. My next one that I would like to highlight, and it's something that you did a reel on recently, but
Mm.
it's so good, it's so true, and that is that sex is not only for procreation. So
Ah.
it is for procreation. God said, be fruitful and multiply. He said, go fill the earth. He said that children are arrows in the hands of a warrior, and blessed are those whose quiver is full of them. There is tons of scripture to back up the fact that sex is absolutely for procreation. However, it is not only for procreation, and that breaks our hearts when we hear people talk about, well, I did my part. We were married for this many years and I gave him 5 babies. And those are the 5 times that we had sex. And it's like, oh no, like you missed out on such a beautiful opportunity. And like, it's so hard. It's sad.
Yeah.
And it's sad whenever that's all that people understand sex to be, because God is such a good father and he made that to be such a beautiful reflection like of that covenant, like what we touched on with the previous episode. And so you're getting cheated out of so much beauty and so much fun and pleasure if you're willing to, put the work in and dive in and do what, figure out what needs to be figured out. But it's not only for filling the earth. Like sometimes it's just fun and it's beautiful and it's a connection and it's solidifying that unity. And so if you have been impacted by somebody who says or who has tried to teach that it is only for procreation, guys, it's not. It is so much more than that.
Here.
Yes.
Here. I think that's, I can't imagine only having sex if I wanted to have a baby. I can't imagine that.
That would be sad.
Yeah, it would be. And just you would lose out on so much connection and intimacy and like pleasure.
Right. And what happens then when you decide you're done having babies? You're just like, well, that's the season of my life that's just over. No.
Yeah, right?
Oh, goodness. Like, man, you're really missing out if that's the case.
Yeah. Another thing that sex is not, it is not something to do so that he won't get his needs met somewhere else.
Yes.
Can we just like stew on that one for a second?
How long do we have?
Like, right?
Yeah.
I feel like so many books that there are out there on this, it's just like, you know what, wives, your husband has needs, and so you need to meet these needs, or else your husband's going to go somewhere else to have those needs met. Sex is not just so your husband won't flit around. Right. And like, I just don't even know where to start with this one.
Yeah.
Where would you start?
Oh gosh. Well, first off, just that it's never on us to take blame and take responsibility for somebody else's sin. And so if the person that you are married to is choosing to seek outside gratification with pornography or, goodness gracious, another person, that is between them and God. And they are taking on that burden of, who knows what kind of doors that's going to open them up to with pain and shame and guilt and, just all the things. And it's not on us to bear the burden of that.
No.
They are responsible.
And think about it the other way around.
Right.
Like, if there's like a woman who's like the higher drive, and it's not like people are telling the men, like, you better meet her needs or she's going to meet them somewhere else. Right?
Never have I heard that.
I've never heard that.
Never.
Like, no one said that. I've never heard that. So I don't understand why. Why it's on the women to like meet this need for their like men.
Right. How often do we hear from women who are like, I'm the higher drive and I feel so ashamed. And it's like, honey, do our men feel ashamed for being higher drive? No, they don't.
No,
they just speak up and say, hey, can we get together tonight? But why? Yeah. Why is it that the women are like, it's like they suffer in silence. They're just like, oh, how horrible of me if I have a high drive. No. Yeah. And so, that's a really good point. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's absolutely true. And we would not see the woman getting grace thrown at her from the individual saying, oh, well, that's just how women are. But I feel like there's like that escape and that little like loopholes given, like, oh, it's just to be
Totally.
expected. And it's so unfair and it's just not accurate. It's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And that will take us into this last one, which has several facets that we could touch on, which is something that we try to drive home every opportunity we get. And that is that sex is not shameful. It is not
Mm.
gross. It is not dirty.
Yeah.
And there is just so much there because it seems like it doesn't matter. You know, you could come from a purity culture background, you could come from not a purity culture background, and you still, like, you know, my story is different from your and Paris's story. However, we
Right.
both have somehow met where we still had to do a lot of healing and a lot of work figuring out how to relieve that pressure that we had accepted and taken on that said that it was a dirty, bad thing. And that if
Right.
we wanted it, it's dirty. Like, only promiscuous people want sex. If we could just like grab ourselves by the shoulders and shake sense into us and be like, listen, it is beautiful, it is beautiful, it is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
God has made this beautiful. This is a gift He has given you. And like, I just want to apologize to everybody out there who has succumbed to that and who has been impacted by the lie that if you have a high sex drive, if you have a low sex drive, and if you only want sex once every couple of months, and if you still feel like there is a part of you that's like, well, no, I don't want it because it's dirty. Or how many
Right.
people are stuck in a rut where they feel like they can only try one position because other positions are sinful, or
Right.
if they get too into it, then man, they must be hypersexual or it's just too
Right.
much. You know, there's just so
Mm-hmm.
many aspects of that. And
Yeah.
it's not true, guys, and
Mm-hmm.
it is none of those things. And you are none of those things if
No.
you are enjoying the gift that God created you to give. This gift that He has given to you and your husband to enjoy together.
And the verse that comes to mind for me right now is like the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, right? And so I
Yeah.
feel like he's taking this segue to like of shame and
Mm,
that those feelings just of like you're disgusted with yourself for like or whatever this shame that comes in, and he is just trying to like steal, kill, and
right.
destroy like any hope and any like joy in that, and just
Mm-hmm.
keeping you like in bondage with that, because it totally does. As soon as you like release the shame and you realize that no, like this is a beautiful gift and like God has blessed this in my marriage, and even if there's like other things going on in the, like that come up from your past, or things even in your marriage that you're like, well, we need to work on this. Okay, so like work on the stuff, and like, but like once you're being intimate and you're in a place where, I don't know, where you can just let go of the shame, and you'll just like
Mm-hmm.
realize how much freedom there is in that. Because I know for myself, I didn't even know I was carrying any shame in it. I didn't
Right.
realize
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
until all of a sudden I had a friend and she's like, yeah, I had to actually really work through some shame because of like just growing up being told that sex was really bad and dirty. And then I got married and I was like, no, this is still really bad and dirty. Like, why would I want
Right.
to have sex if I'm just programmed to think this is something my body's not going to want to do?
Right.
So when your mindset is supposed to be into the zone, you're supposed to like, especially I find for women, it's a lot of it is in like I'll just speak for myself. A lot of it's in my mind. I have to have my
Right.
mind in that place in order to like,
Mm-hmm.
feel in the zone. If I want to like have an orgasm, right? You got to get in the zone with your mind, and I don't know. And so
Yes, you have to
if
be willing to block out all that other stuff.
totally, so if the
Yeah.
narrative in the back of your mind is screaming at you that why on earth are you doing this right now? Like,
Mm,
you're promiscuous or you're a bad girl for doing this or whatever, like
yeah.
There's no way you're going to enjoy it.
Right. And it makes me think too. I mean, I had so much to unpack that I didn't even recognize until several years into our marriage, where I had fought so hard to be the good girl my
Mm,
whole life. And even like expectations and things that were said about me and put on me in high school because of my body type, because I
right.
have a curvier body type, and people automatically thought that because I was built a certain way that I was a promiscuous girl. And so I feel like
Mm.
I over like, oh, what's the word I'm looking for?
Oh,
Like, I made sure I went like above and beyond to go the opposite direction. And
right.
then I had to come to a place after we were married where I had to allow myself to feel confident, to feel sexy, to allow myself to be confident in my body and say,
Yeah.
yes, take pleasure in, my body whenever my husband wants to enjoy it. And for me to say, yeah, go ahead. Because I was so programmed to be like, don't touch me. Don't think you can touch me. I am not that kind of a person,
Mm-hmm.
because that had traumatized me, honestly. And I had to really take that to God and be like, why is it that the second that my husband tries to touch me in a romantic way, that I instantly just want to slap his hand away and be like, stop? And
Right.
that's not true. Like, I love my husband. I want him to touch me. I want him to enjoy touching me. I want to be able to enjoy everything that he does.
Yeah.
And so I really had to do so much work with that. And I think that's something that we also just see in the media. We see the wife who's slapping her husband's hands away whenever he wants to, playfully grab her butt whenever she's in the kitchen, or he comes up
Mm-hmm.
behind her and he hugs her and he tells her that she's beautiful, and we see her roll her eyes and say, oh, whatever, I'm a mess, get away from me. And we
Mm-hmm.
accept that, and we
Right.
start adapting those behaviors before too long. And I think that's something that we should be very mindful of, and we should ask ourselves, like, hey, the way I'm behaving, is that really how I believe? Is that really how I want? Is that really what I want being reflected and being put into practice in our intimate life? Do I want to
Yeah.
be the wife that slaps her husband's hands away and tells him, don't touch me? Or do I want my husband to playfully flirt with me and come up behind me and snuggle and kiss me and all these types of things? I want that. I want to do that. I want to be
Mm-hmm.
doing that whenever we're 85. I
Right.
want to be the old couple that's like, ooh, grandma and grandpa are really touchy feely. Yeah, I want to be like that.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
know. It reminds me
that's,
too of like a lot of reels that are going around these days. There's like, the man's off to like go ask his wife if they want to like have sexy times, and he's like already, you know, got the Advil or the Tylenol with him because
yeah,
she's gonna say she's got a headache. So here, I already got it. Or he'll ask me, "Hey, do you have a headache?" She's like, "No, why's that?" And you're like, "Perfect. Like, I got you. Like, now we're gonna go have sex because you don't have a headache." But it's
yep,
bizarre. It's like this is so commonplace to talk about it. Like, there's so many. Like, there's like it's so back and forth, right? Where you're like watching these movies and it's so like glamorized, and there's like that side of it. But then there's also like the other extreme side of it where she's like, no, like, don't touch me, I have a headache, or like,
yeah.
not tonight, no, not tonight, like, no, not tonight, just every
There
night,
is no
right? So
balance shown.
there's no balance.
It is
And
one
I mean,
extreme or the
that's
next.
totally, and I get it, like, there's seasons of life where, no, I just can't, like, what else can we do instead to build intimacy right
Mm,
now, because this is
yeah,
kind of just off the table right now, right? Or like, but I feel like as long as there's communication throughout it and both parties are feeling, seen and heard and loved
yes.
despite everything, that's the difference. If the
Mm-hmm.
wife was like, "Hey, hun, like, this is what's going on in my mind. If I could just have a bit of time to like go have a bath or go spice myself
Right.
up or whatever," then yeah, then I think I'll be good. Just give me an hour or two and I think I'd be good to go. Or,
Right.
you know, I don't think this is on my brain tonight, but what could we do to like pleasure you instead? Is there something we
Yeah.
could do for you? Even though I like don't actually want to have intercourse right now. Like if there's like
Yeah.
this dialogue, it's completely different than no, I have a headache. It
Right.
just like
We should
shuts
have,
the door.
yeah, and we should just add that in there. So sex is not all or nothing. It's not all or nothing. It's not this is a full Monty or there's no pleasure for anybody. I can't even tell you the amount of times where if it has just been like a day where I'm just like, mentally, I just can't get there right now. I'm too frazzled. I'm too exhausted. XYZ has happened today. And I know that it's 10 o'clock at night. I'm already like, all I can think about is just crashing in bed, and that I'm not going to have the time to decompress and get myself to where I can enjoy this even. However, am I against laying there with my husband and kissing him or being a part of some kind of intimacy? No. Most of the time I'm like, yeah, sure, that's totally fine. I
Yeah.
just like I don't want it to be where it's like, okay, another thing, because they're if we're being honest, it absolutely can be another thing on your list to do that you're thinking, ugh, it's
Right.
Tuesday and that's the day that we have it scheduled or whatnot. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like there are other means to intimacy, and we cannot stress that enough, that
Yeah.
can be beautiful and can be connecting. And so I think that's a really good one that needs to be added in there, that there's so much more than just sex.
Yeah. 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 Sex is a lot of things, but it's not a lot of things too. And so
Yeah.
I think it was good to touch on these things. Like, no, it's not always easy. It's not clean, not just for making babies. It's not just for the men. It's not just so needs are being met. So, but it is still a beautiful gift. And I think one that as you grow and as you maneuver and learn and have these hard conversations, good conversations, it will just get better and better over time. And I think that's really
Absolutely.
exciting and such a beautiful thing. Sex is not going to just stand still. Either you're going
Mm-mm.
forward or you're going backwards. Like your sex life will not just remain in one spot. So we
That's
really
true.
encourage you, be pushing to get better. Do better. Try more things. Learn new things together, because it's a beautiful thing and a gift. You get to do this together with your spouse. So happy sexing.
Hey friends, thank you so much for hanging with us today as we dive deeper into meaningful, godly intimacy, tackle the hard questions, and embrace truth while we're at it. We're also on Instagram. You can find our handle in the show notes alongside any resource links we mentioned in the show. As always, our hearts are to cultivate deep community and freedom with you guys. We are so honored to walk this journey alongside you. We'll see you in the next episode.